the reality is, what is the upside in the stock market at this point? You're at all-time highs right now.
Yeah.
The PE ratios are the highest they've ever been. The economy is on the brink of collapse. The only assets that I see with true upside potential is physical silver, hard, tangible, and there's never been a better time in history, literally in history, to own physical silver than right now. Are you looking to protect your wealth with gold and silver? Book a strategy session with myself or any of our precious metals experts. Click the link in the description below and get started today.
Silver has risen above its highs for May and is trading at its highest level in over a decade. So we got excitement on silver. You have a lot of customers asking about silver. So we decided to do the show dedicated to silver and why it's the best investment.
Yeah, it's my favorite investment in the world by far, which is why we're dedicating a whole episode to it. I'd like to spend more time and focus around the upside of silver, the positives of silver, the manipulation of silver, the different silver products you can invest in. What are some of the upside projections of silver, kind of how it's performed lately. Right now, I think it's the best performing asset this year. Maybe Bitcoin might be the only better one, but it is outperforming gold this year, which is the first time it's outperformed gold in quite some time. And I do think that's the new trend. I think going forward, you'll see silver outperform gold for several years to come.
But gold gets all the hype.
It gets all the hype. It always has. And there's a reason for that. I mean, powers that be, they like to make silver not so shiny. They don't want the spotlight on silver because silver is a very important commodity to the world, and they want the price of silver to stay as low as it is right now. So a lot of people don't really understand what silver is used for from an industrial standpoint. Even the fact that silver was money not too long ago, just a few decades ago. Your paper dollars was a silver certificate. You were able to redeem your cash in for silver. So silver has been money for thousands of years, and the reality is a lot of people don't even know that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Nobody.
I mean, our coinage, because the reality is, even our coinage, our quarters and dimes and nickels back in the day used to be made of real silver.
Right.
And now they're not. So now there's really no focus on silver from the general public. They don't really understand the need for it. They see it's silverware, jewelry, but they don't really know anything else that it's used for. But the reality is, it is the best conductor of electricity in the world. Better than gold, better than copper, better than anything. And now it's being used in all of these new technology, such as cell phones, laptops, but the big growth areas now, solar panels and electric cars. Those two industries alone are going to be taking up 50 to 60% of all of the silver that gets mined from the ground are just going to be used for those two purposes: electric cars and solar panels. Solar panels right now are taking up 30 to 40% of the annual silver supply every year. And this didn't exist several decades ago when silver was $50 an ounce in 1980. Today it's 32. In 1980, they didn't have, silver wasn't being used for all these different technology purposes. Photography was the biggest one. We lost that, but now all the new technology we have, everybody has a cell phone, everybody has multiple TVs in their house. Yeah, so all the new use cases today for silver are super exciting. Water purification, it's used in the medical industry, in medicine to cure, to heal wounds. Silver is one of the best unknown commodities in the world and most important precious metals in the world there is today. Pretty much everything that requires technology requires silver. Electric cars, the growth plans that they have from now until the end of 2030 are huge, and that requires a large amount of silver. War,
which we're headed to one of the biggest wars.
Yeah, I mean, missiles are requiring 500 ounces of silver each one. So I mean, you're talking about huge amounts of silver being used up in war. The use cases for silver are never ending, and they keep growing. And the truth is, the demand is growing by 200 to 300 million ounces every year, which is about 20 to 30% of the annual supply. So we've had shortfalls in the silver market for several years now. When I say shortfalls, I mean the demand is outpacing the supply. So the demand is growing to 300 million ounces a year, but the supply is actually staying flat. Last year, the supply of silver actually declined a bit. So even though you got all this new demand for silver, nobody's mining more silver. So there's not a lot of silver in the world to mine. There's not a lot of silver mining companies as well. There's only a handful of mining companies that mine silver exclusively. most of the silver that gets mined from gold mining companies. So when they're mining for gold, they find some silver, they'll put the silver to the side. That's how most of the silver that is mined gets found, by trying to mine other things.
So should I get into the silver mining
You
business?
should, but the problem with that is it takes 5 to 10 years
Yeah.
from the time you get approval and,
Oh, yeah,
and all
right.
the legal, and then you got the
Yeah.
actual mining of it, and then you got to refine it.
Mhm.
It's a huge undertaking. So people always tell me that. They're like, well, they'll just mine more silver. And it's not the way it works. Now that we have shortfalls, these shortfalls aren't going to go away. It's not like you have a bunch of new mining companies entering the sector. There's not.
Yeah.
It's the same mining company. Like
Because the
supply-
barrier to entry is
it's huge.
it's
Barrier
huge,
entry is
yeah.
huge. The cost of entry is enormous.
Right.
The red tape.
Yeah.
Mexico's dealing with that right now. There's rumors of nationalizing silver in multiple countries. So I mean, you're going to see a lot of changes happening in silver, because you're going to see an emergency at some point where the governments come out and they raise the white flag and they say, we have an emergency because we don't have enough silver in the world to make cell phones and electric cars and solar panels. That's exactly what's going to happen at some point in the near future. I think in the next 12 to 18 months, there will be no more above ground physical silver, and there will be an emergency at that point.
So hold on. I'm thinking right now. I had a coffee, so my mind's going 100 miles an hour. So if you want to be a big power player, like if you're like an elite and you have a lot of money, why don't you, has there ever been, or will there ever be someone who buys a huge hoards silver?
Yeah.
They become a big,
Yeah, that'd be game over. That's
Yeah.
the reality of it is 1 billionaire.
like a
come out.
Elon Musk would buy.
Well, Elon Musk is the #1 purchaser of silver. You'll never know,
Oh,
but
oh.
his companies that he owns, Tesla,
Right.
requires enormous amounts of silver. So
Okay.
he's probably gonna, if anybody's gonna open up a silver mine, it'll probably be Elon Musk,
Right.
to be honest with you. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened in 1980. The Hunt brothers cornered the market. There was 3 brothers, and they bought 100 million ounces of silver at the time. They brought the price from silver at that point was $6, and it went to $50
Wow.
almost overnight. And the reality is silver was $1 in the early 70s, and it went to $50 by the end of the 1970s. So in 1 decade, silver went up over 40 times, which was by far the best performing asset of that decade. And that's exactly what I believe this decade will be. I think you're going to see silver and gold lead all financial instruments. And what happened in the 1970s as well is real estate and stocks performed really, really poorly. They didn't even keep up with inflation. They were under 100% returns for that decade, where silver was up 4,000%. So it's a big difference. And I think you're going to see that exact same thing play out. I don't think stocks and bonds are going to get crushed necessarily, or real estate. I don't think the price is going to go down drastically, but I don't think the price is going to go much higher either.
Right.
The upside is limited, where silver's upside is enormous.
Right.
I mean, the price today compared to the 1980 price of silver is really the main thing you should look at. 1980 was $50. Today it's 32. Why is every other asset up 15 to 20 times from 1980, but for some reason silver is down? That's pure manipulation from the banks, and they've admitted to it, and they've paid billions of dollars in fines for rigging the precious metals markets. And they're going to continue to rig it until the physical silver runs out, and then that's the end game. Then they'll be exposed for rigging the markets for decades, and then you'll see the true price of silver at that point.
Explode.
It will go absolutely
Yeah.
parabolic.
Yeah.
When they're not able to make that delivery on the COMEX, because the COMEX is where the gold and silver is traded on, and the reality is every month they have to deliver a certain amount of silver for whoever demands it. There's going to come a point where they're not going to be able to deliver that silver, because the truth is they're only sitting on 1 ounce for every 100 ounces of paper derivatives they sell. So if you get 1% of people asking for their silver, that's all they
Yeah.
can actually deliver at that point.
Yeah.
At some point, they're going to say, oh, sorry, we can't deliver it. We'll have to settle in cash. And that's exactly what's going to happen. People are expecting the silver, but you're not going to be getting silver. You're going to be getting cash.
Now okay. So just to question that, is there any way, like, will more miners companies, silver mining companies open up? Will they'll start grabbing, like what you just talked about, where
Yeah, but
how
it won't
close are there to physical silver? Like, how much is it?
There's not a lot.
There's not a lot. There's more gold.
There's more gold in the world.
Okay.
Even above ground, there's
Yeah.
silver and gold are 1 to 1. So there's the same amount of silver
Yeah.
as gold.
Right.
but gold is trading at 80 times more the price of silver,
Mhm.
which is an anomaly. Only 1% of the time in history has silver been this cheap compared to gold. The normal average, if you go back hundreds and thousands of years, was 15, 16 to 1. And that rate was actually flat. It was 16 to 1 for over 1,000 years in a row. And the reason it was 16 to 1 is because they were mining 16 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold they mined. Okay, so if they mined
Okay.
1 ounce of gold, they got 16 ounces of silver. So
Okay,
that's where the
gotcha.
ratio came
Yeah.
in. It was fixed. It was based off of how much silver was in the ground versus gold, which
Right.
makes sense, right?
Right.
Now they're
Now,
mining it 7 to 1. So now you're only mining 7 times the amount of silver versus gold. So the ratio should be 7 to 1, and the ratio is 80 to 1. Okay, so it's way out of whack. Silver's got about 1,200, 1,300% more upside potential than gold at this point. And that's exactly what happened in the 1970s. Silver went up 1,600% more than gold. I think that's exactly what happened in this decade. I think you're going to see silver absolutely go crazy, potentially over $1,000 an ounce. Right now we're at 30. So I think you can make 40, 50 times your money in silver, where gold you might only make 4 to 5 times your money.
wow.
Gold's at 2,700 right now, US. I think it could probably go to 15, 20,000, which is great, but it's not 40, 50 times. It's only 7 times your money.
Yeah. Well, I could understand why you're pro silver. It's exciting.
It's
And it's exciting because back to what Robert Kiyosaki said, and then if you guys are on the same page of this, is and why I like it, it's time for the poor to get rich. And that's what he says. You can what is a silver an ounce right now?
so let me show you here.
Yeah, so we got
Some different silver. So this is a 1 ounce buffalo
yeah,
coin from a private mint. So you're looking at around 40, 46, $47 an ounce.
yeah.
The maple's a little more expensive, around $48 an ounce. And then you got the eagle around $50 an ounce. So this is the most popular coin in the world. The maple's the second most popular coin in the world. This is actually called a round because it doesn't come from the government.
Right.
So the buffalo is actually deemed as a privately minted round. It's not deemed as currency. But the U.S. Eagles and the Canadian maple, this is deemed as currency.
Right.
So it's very affordable. The point is, you can get a lot of silver.
Yeah.
You buy $5,000 of silver, you get 100 ounces. Okay, 100 ounces. If silver goes to where I think it's going to go to, let's just say 1,000, that's $100,000 from a $5,000 investment. That's a
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, that's a
It's
nice
a nice
return.
score. And the way I look at it is, I believe silver can save a family financially. I think there's a lot of people right now that are struggling to make ends meet. The middle class is really feeling the pinch. Inflation is at 40-year highs. I don't think that's going away. I think the cost of living is just going to get higher and higher.
Right.
So my opinion, and that's why I'm so passionate about silver, because I really do think it will save the middle class financially. If you're not invested into assets like silver, I mean, you can also argue Bitcoin potentially is another one of those assets that can go up 20, 30 times from here. If you're not invested in those types of assets, you're going to have a really hard time keeping up with inflation, because the cost of living is just going to keep going higher and higher and higher. And if your pay is staying the same, how are you going to be able to afford that? That's where silver comes into play. In the 1970s, like I said, it went up 40 times. I think you can make 40 times in this decade as well. And if you put 10 grand in, now you got $400,000. That could save you. Now, if your groceries are $1,000 a week instead of $200 a week, well, at least you have some money that you made from silver that you can help pay for things.
Right.
But if you don't have that safety net, which is what I believe silver is, it's a safety net. It's insurance, and it's just one of those assets I think is a must own. I think every single person should own as much silver as possible. Let's put it this way: I own a lot of silver. A big part of my net worth, a big high percentage of my net worth, is in silver, and I still continue to buy. I panic. I feel like you can never have enough because I know where the price is going. It's so 100% certain in my mind, based off of how cheap it is and compared to the historical prices and where it's heading, based off of the inflation. Like right now, everything in the world that is happening today is very, very positive for gold and silver.
Mhm.
Everything. You got the war going on in the Middle East. You got the war going on in Ukraine. You got inflation at 40-year highs. You got interest rates coming down across the world. Canada and the US specifically both reduced rates by 50 basis points. Canada's looking at reducing probably another 50 basis points in October. The whole world's lowering interest rates, which is really, really bad for the dollar, bad for inflation, but really good for precious metals. I mean, and then you got the banking crisis potentially happening. You got a lot of regional banks in the U.S. that are on the verge of bankruptcy. And when you start seeing those banks start to fail, that's when people rush into precious metals. Right now, there's not a sense of urgency right now to invest into precious metals. We at Can-Am are actually buying more gold and silver from our customers than we're selling. So that kind of gives you an idea as to where we're at right now.
Well, that makes sense because people are cashing out. Gold has reached its
Gold's
all-time
all-time
high.
highs. Some are taking
Yeah.
profits.
Some are already taking, these are the people that want to take profits that
Sure.
probably
Some
held
of
on
them.
it for a long
Some
time.
are just need the money. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
sometimes you're buying a building, or you might be investing into something else, and you need
Yeah.
silver would be the last thing I would ever sell.
Yeah.
So when people come to me and sell silver, I try to talk them out of it.
yeah.
I understand they need the money, but a lot of people have other assets, but for some reason they feel like they can't sell it because they don't want to pay the taxes, or their financial advisor doesn't want them to sell it.
Right.
The reality is, what is the upside in the stock market at this point? You're at all-time highs right now.
Yeah.
The PE ratios are the highest they've ever been. The economy is on the brink of collapse.
Yeah.
Literally, globally, not just
Yeah.
in Canada, in the US. Housing is tanking. Not tanking, but it's really slowed down. Nobody's rushing into buying homes anymore. So there's no upside in real estate at this point, in my opinion. There's not a lot of upside in stocks. The only assets that I see with true upside potential is physical silver and potentially cryptocurrencies as well. But silver and gold to me are my favorite because they're hard, tangible, and they got 5,000 years of history as money on their side.
Mhm.
Bitcoin's only been around for just over a decade. So for that reason, I prefer gold and silver, specifically silver. Yeah, and there's never been a better time in history, literally in history, to own physical silver than right now. This is the perfect time. It's a perfect storm. Everything is happening. Everything happening in the world today is super bullish for silver. Everything.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you got the green initiatives around the world. Everybody's going green. You got electric cars, solar panels. That all requires enormous amounts of silver. Where's this silver going to come from? We already have a 300 million ounce shortfall this year. They only produce 1 billion ounces a year. So you got a 30% shortfall. Where are they going to find 300 million ounces of silver? And then the year after, you're going to have a 400 or 500 million ounce shortfall. Where are they going to go find 400 or 500 million ounces of silver? This is not small amounts. These are enormous shortfalls that they're having.
Right.
And the shortfalls are going to get worse here on out. That's a fact.
So, and that's a warning too. Like, okay, for the little guy, this is great. You could get in, just like if you want to buy an ounce of gold, what's an ounce of gold right now?
$3,700.
$3,700. Where an ounce of silver at most is $50, right? That's great for the little guy. You could dollar cost average, buy 1 coin a week. You know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly it. That's
Yeah.
kind of what I try to tell people.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You don't.
Yeah.
Have to
You don't
just
have
put
to come here with a
No,
big
You don't
check.
have to go sell all your other assets
Yeah.
and rush into silver. No.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, but
Yeah.
the reality is, whatever you save, a lot
Right.
of people put money into their RSP or TFSA or their
Right.
RESP or all these
Right.
different government traps is really what they are. Because once you put that money in, you never take it out.
Right.
That's the reality.
Because you'll get taxed. taxed
More
to death
times than
on
not, you die and that money's still in that account.
Yeah.
Where silver is not that way. It's in your possession. You can sell it at any time. There's no penalties.
Yeah.
Nobody's trying to talk you out of selling it. So yeah, what was your question again? I forgot.
No, I was talking about how it's a small investment, right? To get in, but we got to create a sense of urgency because what you just predicted and that happens, it might be too late for the people watching where they'll come
good
into
point.
someone like you, like
That's
a
a good
retailer,
point.
and you won't have silver to sell them.
You're 100% right.
So people got to stop with the FOMO, following the herd.
Right.
Because that's how people react.
Yeah,
and
if
we
all
know
your
that.
friends are buying an asset, you're too
Yeah.
late to the party.
Yeah,
And that happened
exactly.
with Bitcoin a couple times.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
happened with the marijuana stocks
Right.
back in the day. Everybody and their mother.
But that's when it gets busy and you know yourself.
You know, that's when you gotta sell your asset. And right now,
Right.
honestly, nobody's rushing into buying precious metals. If you think your money is safe, think again. Our economy is on the brink of total collapse. Think back to the 2008 financial crisis. Inflation is skyrocketing, stocks tumbling, and banks on the verge of collapse. Sound familiar? It's not just history, it's a warning. And ignoring this warning could be the biggest financial mistake of your life. In 2008, gold and silver were by far the best performing assets. That is why now is the time to invest in precious metals. At Can-Am Bullion, you can order both gold and silver directly from our online store. Can-Am is also an authorized dealer with the Royal Canadian Mint. so you can be rest assured that you are dealing with a reputable bullion dealer. Do you really want to wait for an economic collapse? Now is the time to make a smart and informed decision and protect your wealth with gold and silver. Click the link below to book a consultation with myself or any of our precious metals experts.
Right now is the perfect time.
The perfect time. It's quiet.
Yeah,
It's
because you actually have silver. Because if these things happen, say like in a year or two down the road, it might be too late for that.
For sure. This is the calm before the storm. You got no bank failures yet, right? So people are still trusting their banks.
Yeah.
The stock markets are all-time high, so people are still trusting their stocks. So nobody's rushing out of stocks to buy gold and silver at this point.
Right.
It's not happening. But that point is coming. The war, once that escalates, so again, once that war turns into a world war and it grows, I mean, people are going to be rushing into precious metals, selling their stocks as fast as they can. You don't want to own high-risk assets when there's war going on or there's bank failures. That's when people will rush out. But the time to buy is when nobody else is buying, and that's honestly right now.
Yeah,
because we're buying more than we're selling from customers. Customers are selling it back to us, which is the first time we've ever seen this in the 8 years. And when I talk to other bullion dealers out there, it's the first time they've ever seen this, where they've been buying more than they've been selling. This is an anomaly, and
it's almost like the mentality of the Warren Buffett, where everybody was in tech stocks. He was in like these growth stocks that are, necessities people needed, right? And that's where silver is right now, right? Nobody's there. Now's the time to buy because you're getting it at rock bottom prices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like I said, only 0.5% of people own precious metals in North America. In 1980, it got up to 5%. Okay. So now we're at
that's a big jump.
So we could expect the same.
Yeah.
But I think you'll have more people investing in silver this time around than 1980.
Yeah.
A lot more. The world's going to be completely different. People will be a lot more scared now than they were in 1980. So I think 5 to 1 is a little low, or 5% of people owning precious metals, probably low. It would probably get up to 10%. And right now we're at 0.5%. So that's a 20-fold increase in the interest in people owning physical silver. That would make the price go absolutely parabolic. And that's coming. But you're right. You made a really good point. When people are finally ready to buy and they're rushing in to buy, you won't be able to get it. And I promise you that.
Have you ever had waits before?
4 months we waited during COVID. We couldn't get any silver for 4 months.
See?
And I was calling everywhere around the world, and you couldn't get it. 4 months was the shortest.
Come here during COVID.
Most stuff you couldn't get.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't get Royal Canadian Mint products or U.S. Mint product. None of that stuff. You got the bottom of the barrel, like whatever they couldn't sell is what you were able to get. And it took 4 months. I mean, this time around, you'll get 4-month wait times. But the next step after 4-month wait time, in my opinion, is going to be, sorry, we can't sell you anything.
Right.
We got nothing to sell you.
It's a scary time.
It's a scary time,
to say the least.
And it's coming, and it's 100% coming. I know it.
You kind of see a glimpse of it in the stock market. So if you watch past episodes of the Gold Awakening, you've predicted a commodity bull market.
Right.
You said we're going to be in a commodities bull market, and you're kind of seeing that in the TSX, the Toronto Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
Why the TSX is doing well is because Canada's full of commodities.
Right. And oil's still not high yet.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, oil with this war escalating.
Yeah.
You're going to see the price of oil skyrocket as well.
Yeah.
People are going to rush into commodities. I do believe, because commodities are super, super cheap compared to stocks and bonds at this point.
Yeah.
Historically speaking, they're at all-time lows. Commodities are, and even though gold's at all-time highs, like there's a big disconnect right now. There's something called that Dow gold theory. Okay, so the Dow Jones, which right now is what, 40 something thousand? I don't even pay attention because I don't own many stocks anymore. So the Dow, let's just say it's 40,000. Stocks are gold is $2,700. But if you go out throughout past history, the Dow Jones and gold always go to a 1-to-1 ratio. They touch at a 1-to-1 ratio and then goes back up. So we're at right now, the Dow is what, 15 times more expensive than gold?
So
it's
42,000.
42. So we're at about a 15-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
Okay, 15-to-1. That's got to go to 1-to-1 ratio. That means gold is going to outperform the Dow Jones by 1,500% in the coming years. Now the question is gold going to go up 1,500% and stocks and the Dow stays at 42? I doubt it. I think you're going to see something where the Dow Jones comes down to 20,000 and gold goes up to 20,000. Let's just say 5 to 10 years from now, that's where we'll be. You'll see the Dow Jones come down significantly because we're in a recession or a depression. We're in war. We had banking crisis. We could have had a whole financial reset. There's so many things that could cause the stock market to go down 50%. That's not that much.
Yeah.
It did that in 2008. And this event, this financial collapse that we're going to go through is going to make 2008 look like a walk in the park.
Yeah.
And the reality is it's going to be worse than the Great Depression. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, the cost of living now is already at the levels of a Great Depression. I mean, you got two incomes that still aren't able to pay their bills.
Yeah.
I mean, these are tough times already.
Incomes. Yeah. And
Right.
you know, 6-figure
And
salaries.
this is with everything still being good.
Yeah.
I mean, wait until things get bad.
Mhm.
And everything they're doing now with interest rates, they're planning to lower interest rates in Canada and the US multiple times over the next 12 months. All that's going to do is cause prices to go higher. I mean, and inflation to go up. So the middle class is going to have even a much harder time getting by. And that's not going to go away. So again, I stress silver, silver, silver. It's by far my favorite asset.
Yeah. And it, like you said, back on that, I don't think we'll see a recession. I don't even think we'll see a depression. Well, it will be a depression because I think we're going to see the currency collapse.
Same.
And we talked about that in the past. You have multiple clips about that.
Yeah, the Glenn Beck video.
Yeah.
Where he says everybody thinks there's going to be a really bad recession or even a depression.
Yeah.
But the reality is what we're going to see is much worse. Is going to be a collapse of the dollar.
Right.
Which is really scary because it's not like it's just one currency that's going to collapse. The US dollar is the reserve currency. If the US reserve currency collapses, all the currencies are going to collapse with it. And that's really been the plan since they started fiat currency. Since they went off the gold standard in 1971, it was their plan to collapse the dollar and inflate their way out of the issues they were having. And that's exactly what happened and what we're seeing today. The dollar is down 97 to 98% to gold since 1913. I mean, the dollar is going to go to zero, and we're going to have to create a new currency, and we're going to have to back it by gold. Money has to be backed by gold. A government just can't come out and say, here's money and you're going to use it and you're going to trust it and it's great and it's fantastic. No, it's not how it works. Gold is money. If you don't back your currency by gold, there's no value there. You're just basing it off trust.
Mm-hmm.
And how can you trust the government? Look what the government's doing with our money right now. They spent how many trillions of dollars during COVID and for what?
Yeah.
Did anybody benefit from any of those trillions?
Well, the elites, more billionaires were made.
You're
if
right.
you were an elite, you benefited.
Right,
if you were middle class, you moved down to poor.
Exactly.
And that's exactly that
That's
gap.
what they want.
That gap is getting
It's widening,
small.
widening,
Yeah.
and widening, and it's going to get worse and worse, and worse.
Yeah.
Way worse. I mean, the middle class is struggling as it is, but it's only going to get much, much worse in the next few years.
Yeah.
Um,
But back to the, and people will always say that. And when we get into, you debate this amongst friends and stuff, and people always go back to, oh, they'll just print more money. They'll just print more money.
You're right.
When is printing more? When is that going to end? Because that sounds too good to be true. How can you always
not
print
gonna
yourself out of money? Which you already seen the result. They're tanking the dollar because of that, right?
Mhm.
And inflation, the more the money printing these governments print,
the higher the
the
inflation.
higher inflation,
Right.
right? So
It's not going to end. And the reason it's not going to end is the central banks control the world.
right,
They control the money supply. They control if they want to print more money. They
Right.
control the interest rates. The central banks becomes more powerful as they continue to print more money. Because as they print that money and they hand it out to different governments around the world, they're charging interest on all of that money.
right,
Okay, so that's how the central banks make money, by creating new money. If the
right.
central banks stopped creating money, they'd be out of business. They'd be shut down.
Yeah,
So they're going to always keep that.
Right.
They're the ones who make the rules. It's not like Trump says, hey, you know what? We should lower interest rates. No, it's this private entity called the Federal Reserve of the United States
Yeah.
of America, which is not federal by any means. It is a private organization run by some very bad people that are in charge
Yeah.
and do not have our best interests in mind. They have their best interests in mind, and their interest right now is to become more powerful and to gain more control by buying more assets, printing money and buying assets. That's what they're going to do for the next decade until they own it all. That's the central bank's end goal, to own the entire planet. And that's what's
Yeah.
going to happen, because every single government in the world is going to be bankrupt. And who's going to bail them out? Central bank.
exactly.
But this time, the central bank, when they bail them out, they're going to start taking assets. Give me your gold mining. You know what I mean? Come to Canada, give me your mines, give me your buildings, your government buildings. The central banks are going to take control and ownership of everything. Give me your land, and that's
Right.
what's going to happen. Countries like Canada are just going to hand it over to these central banks because they're the ones who are in charge.
And you get a glimpse of this in the news. What are central banks doing? They're buying gold.
Buying gold. Why wouldn't they? They're
Yeah.
printing money. What are you gonna go buy?
Yeah.
Government bonds, stocks that are at all-time highs. They do that too. They buy
Yeah.
it all. They buy everything.
They buy out, but
They're
they're
just buying
buying
more gold.
They're buying more gold historical amounts. Are they buying
more than
silver?
history.
Because I've never seen.
You'll never see them ever announce them buying silver.
Yes.
But yes, of course they are. India, for example, in the last 2 years, bought 700 million ounces of silver.
Wow.
So I mean, a lot of these countries are starting to
Mhm.
wake up, and they also realize they need it. And a lot of these countries want to go green. If you want to go green, you better own a bunch of silver, and you better buy it for cheap,
Yeah.
because silver at $30 is a big difference than silver at $1,000.
Yes. So they're stocking up now.
They're stocking up, and companies like Tesla and Apple that need silver, of course they're stocking up.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're going to continue to stock up.
Okay, let's help out the little guy. Give me a little glimpse now. If people are interested, obviously, Michael is a precious metals expert. He has canambullion.com where you can buy whatever you'd like online. But if you really, you watch our episodes and you really don't understand, you offer free consultation. So someone could come, sign up. That's available on the canamcurrency.com as well as canambullion.com. And they could they could do a free consultation with one of your precious metals experts or yourself too, right?
Yeah.
So let's give a little example of that. So say someone like a newbie just starting off, what would you recommend? Now that we have some silver displayed.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say their first question is usually, what should I be buying?
Yeah.
Gold or silver?
Or silver,
right?
Yeah, that's a great question.
The reality is the first thing I tell people to look at when making that decision is the gold-silver ratio. How much more expensive is gold than silver today? And right now it's over 80 to 1, which is an anomaly. Like I said before, only 1% of time in history has silver been this cheap compared to gold. So for that's one reason I would buy silver today, because it's cheaper than it's ever been compared to gold. Number two is silver is also cheaper than it was in 1980. Okay.
Yeah.
With inflation where it's at now and the price of everything skyrocketing, for silver to be cheaper than it wasn't, it's the only asset in the world that is cheaper than its 1980 price, where gold is over 300% higher than its 1980 price. So another reason I would buy silver. The other reason I would buy silver over gold is the industrial demand right now is growing substantially, where gold is not growing at all. Gold is money and jewelry, and that's it. Where silver, there's other use cases, but small percentage of the gold gets used for that. Where silver, 70% of all the silver that gets mined from the ground gets used up for industrial purposes like solar panels and electric cars and cell phones and laptops, etc. So the demand, like I said, is growing 20 to 30% a year. I mean, that's outrageous. The growth in silver is huge, where gold, there's not a lot of growth in demand other than from central banks buying it. So that's another thing. What else can I say?
And then these pieces, like, where should you start off with? Should you buy a big silver bar? Should you buy a small bar? Should you buy the coins?
Yeah, so now you made the decision
rounds?
to invest in silver.
Yeah.
Now I would say the first thing you should buy is 1 ounce denominated coins,
Right.
or rounds.
Okay,
So whether you
perfect.
buy buffaloes, maples, eagles, I would do a mix. Since we're in Canada, I really love the maples.
Yeah.
They're a very, very popular coin in the
Right.
world, well recognized. And the buffaloes are a little cheaper.
And you're an authorized Royal Canadian Mint dealer.
Yes,
Or-
there's
or-
not
yeah.
there's not a lot of them.
Yeah.
I think there's only maybe 20 in Canada or something like that.
So the trust is there, the legitimacy.
Yeah.
that's
So
straight from the
if you're gonna run out to go buy silver right
Yeah.
now, the one thing I would tell you is don't buy from jewelry stores, don't buy from pawn shops.
yeah.
I mean, go to your local coin dealer, build a relationship with them, because you're not just going to go to them one time.
Yeah.
You're going to be buying multiple times. You're going to be selling multiple times. So you're going to want to build a relationship, because they're very knowledgeable. Not only are they knowledgeable, they're in the know, which means they know what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
Like right now, a person buying a silver coin from me today doesn't know how long I have to wait for silver from my wholesaler,
Yeah.
right? Or they don't know how much the premiums are going on behind the scenes.
Right.
We get that information. So that information is really, really valuable. Like, for example, going from a 1 week wait time to a 4 month wait time is enormous. Like right now, there's no wait times on silver or gold. So that tells you a lot. What that tells you is there's not a lot of retail interest right now.
Right.
So build a relationship with your coin dealer. They're going to give you good pricing as well. They're going to beat your bank's pricing. They're going to beat Costco's pricing. Costco's another one. People just, they see cheap prices, they rush and they go buy it. The reality is their prices aren't that cheap. There's no consultation. They don't give you any direction. You're limited to what you can buy. They don't buy back. They don't have certain products. So, I mean, Costco's not a good place to buy your gold and silver. Now, if you're just buying one gold coin for whatever reason you want to buy it for a gift, sure, that's fine. But if you're looking to actually invest into precious metals properly, where your 10 to 25% of your overall net worth is getting be put into precious metals, you have to go visit a coin dealer and have a consultation and understand the differences between gold and silver, the difference between 1 ounce denomination versus 100-ounce denomination. For example, this 100-ounce bar, it's beautiful. I love it. But this shouldn't be your first purchase into silver. You're better off buying 1 ounce denomination, because in the future, this bar is going to be worth over $100,000 in my opinion. You may not.
And what is it now?
It's 5,000.
Wow.
Just under 5,000.
Gotta get one of those.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's just about knowing what you're buying, and making sure you understand the brands and making sure it's legitimate. There's a lot of fake gold and silver out there as well. So you can't just go to a pawn shop and buy an ounce of gold, or on eBay or on Craigslist.
And you can detect that too, right?
Yeah, we do have a machine here. So if people have stuff that they're not sure and they want to test it, just bring it in. We test it for free. We'll tell you exactly the purity of the gold or silver.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
So yeah, we don't buy anything from customers unless we test it.
Right.
So everything that we have in store is 100% verified and pure. That's
awesome. I think we covered a lot. Just to go over back, www.canambullion.com. That is your you sell gold and silver online. They could purchase any of these products online and have it delivered to your doorstep. Also book a free consultation if you want to more with Michael or his other precious metals experts. What else did I want to add? I think that's it. Is there any? I think we covered everything. I mean, if we haven't sold you on why silver's the best investment, I really don't know.
You know what? The other thing I would say is do your own research.
Yeah, of course.
People, I wouldn't rush into invest in anything.
Yeah.
There's so much content out there. Obviously, we have the Gold Awakening, but there's so many podcasts out there and videos. Robert Kiyosaki's great on silver. There's so many. Mike Maloney from goldsilver.com. He created the hidden secrets of money. So there's so much content out there. Because once you actually learn about this stuff, like I've spent the time, I've spent years and years, hours a day studying this market to get where I'm at. So that's why I am able to talk about it so confidently, because I've done the work. So if people did the research themselves, they'd be rushing in to invest in silver as well. I promise you. Yeah. So do the research. And if you don't want to do the research, come and talk to me and I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah. And stop spending your money on Starbucks coffee and Tim Hortons, where you could get 100% organic coffee at A&W. And the money you save there for only $2.40, you get this. The money you save, go see Michael and buy silver. What more you guys want? And if you want, also go to our past episodes, and we have tons of clips running where Michael gets into so much about silver. Awesome. Good. Great episode.
Thanks, man.